Hello, everyone. We are back. We are back in ancient Rome with our good pal Suetonius and the 12 Caesars. And we're running back into the life of Julius Caesar, who, when we left off at paragraph 49, uh, apparently even his soldiers sang songs about him supposedly uh, effeminately messing around with royal company who were men. And don't know if that's true. This is Suetonius after all. He's essentially writing a historical soap opera for us about our guy Caesar. It's been a wild run so far, and so far we still haven't gotten to the point where this guy, well, he did get killed, but then Suetonius went backwards rather abruptly into some other scandalous details about his life. So we left off with paragraph 49. I'm going to jump right in and start with paragraph 50. As usual, I'm not an academic. I'm just someone who got back into Latin a few years ago when I had only taken one class out of it way back in high school, 30 some years ago. And a good friend of mine who's a classicist got me encouraged and inspired to get back into it, which led into ancient Roman history, ancient Greek, which I just started last year, on and off, ancient Greek history, and now expanding into even Egypt, uh, reading a book on Assyria and some other things, and my own local stuff here in North America with my Native American ancestry and so on. So I'm going to just jump into paragraph 50 and a further effort to get folks, blue collar folks like me, interested in classics by reading it to you aloud. And if anybody else who hears this or watches this is a classicist, please chime on in, like, subscribe, and jump in with what you know and how you can further educate me and everybody else, and just keep the circle of life going. Paragraph 50 of the 12 Caesars. It is admitted by all that he was much addicted to women, as well as very expensive in his intrigues with them, and that he debauched many ladies of the highest quality, among them who were Postumia, the wife of Ceres Sulpicius, Lollia, the wife of Aulus Gabinius, Tertulla, the wife of Marcus Crassus, and Marcus Crassus was his boy. That okay? I mean, I'm heteromantic, asexual. I'm ace, but I thought I thought that was the lowest thing guys did was sleep with each other's woman. But okay. And Mucia, the wife of Cnaeus Pompey. That's his other boy. What? I mean, but then they later on go fight and kill each other, so you know. For it is certain that the Curios, both father and son, and many others, made it a reproach to Pompey, quote, that to gratify his ambition he married the daughter of a man upon whose account he had divorced his wife, after having had 3 children by her, and whom he used with a deep sigh to call Aegisthus, and called her a man's name. Okay? But the mistress he most loved was Servilia, the mother of Marcus Brutus, for whom he purchased, in his first consulship after the commencement of their intrigue, a pearl which cost him 6 millions of sesterces, and in the civil war, besides other presents, assigned to her for a trifling consideration, some valuable farms when they were exposed to public auction, many persons expressing their surprise at the lowness of the price. Cicero wittily remarked, quote, to let you know the real value of the purchase between ourselves, Tertia was deducted. For Servilia was supposed to have prostituted her daughter Tertia to Caesar. Good gosh. Yeah, this is making a lot of soap operas seem kind of tame. And again, I should put the warning out there that, scholars debate how much of what Suetonius wrote is legit. So, take all this with a grain of salt as you will. I guess if you're more inclined to liking gossip and things like that, right, I guess you'll just run with it. But yeah, that's bad. If I remember right, in order to be like the highest, like the patrician class in Rome, you had to have like 1 million sesterces or something like that worth in land. So isn't that like, and those people from that class could become senators? Am I way off base? Someone correct me because I know I'm just doing this off the top of my head, so it's probably wrong, but that's technically like 6 senators worth of sesterces uh, for to give for this pearl. Uh, okay. But again, from earlier paragraphs, we know that Caesar supposedly wanted to invade Britannia for their pearls, which I did look up, and apparently northern the UK, specifically the Isle of Britain, and up north, closer to Scotland, was the largest supplier of freshwater pearls, all the way up into the 20th century, not just ancient times. And pearls were very special to the Romans, and especially to our guy Julius. So, paragraph 51. That he had intrigues likewise with married women in the provinces appears from this distich, which was as much repeated in the Gallic triumph as the former. Ah, and the triumph the goes, watch well your wives, ye kits, we bring a blade pate master of the wenching trade. Thy gold was spent on many a Gallic W cross line E. Okay. Exhausted now, thou comest to borrow more. Okay. All right. Oh, good grief. Right. Paragraph 52. In the number of his mistresses were also some queens, such as Eunoe, Amor, the wife of Bagudes, to whom and her husband he made, as Naso reports, many large presents. But his greatest favorite was Cleopatra, with whom he often reveled all night until the dawn of day, and would have gone with her through Egypt in dalliance as far as Aethiopia, in her luxurious yacht, had not the army refused to follow him. He afterwards invited her to Rome, whence he sent her back loaded with honors and presents, and gave her permission to call by his name a son, who, according to the testimony of some Greek historians, resembled Caesar both in person and gait. Mark Antony declared in the Senate that Caesar had acknowledged the child as his own, and that Caius Matius, Caius Oppius, and the rest of Caesar's friends knew it to be true. On which occasion, Oppius, as if it had been an imputation which he was called upon to refute, published a book to show, quote, that the child which Cleopatra fathered upon Caesar was not his. Helvius Cinna, tribune of the people, admitted to several persons the fact that he had a bill ready drawn, which Caesar had ordered him to get enacted in his absence, allowing him, with the hope of leaving issue, to take any wife he chose, and as many of them as he pleased, and to leave no room for doubt of his infamous character for unnatural lewdness and adultery. Curio, the father, says in one of his speeches, quote, he was every woman's man and every man's woman. One wonders if half of this is true, how much time he had in a day to go conquer, lead troops, run in the Senate, be the Pontifex Maximus in the temple. I mean, you had to walk around back in the day. You didn't have a car or a plane, So, anyway, paragraph 53. It is acknowledged even by his enemies that in regard to wine he was abstemious. A remark is ascribed to Marcus Cato, quote, that Caesar was the only sober man amongst all those who were engaged in the design to subvert the government. The government. Oh God. All right. So he's constantly trying to overthrow and subvert the government, everyone. But I have good news. He's not a drunk, and he never will be. In the matter of diet, Caius Oppius informs us, quote, that he was so indifferent that when a person in whose house he was entertained had served him with stale instead of fresh oil, and the rest of the company would not touch it, he alone ate very heartily of it, that he might not seem to tax the master of the house with rusticity or want of attention. So there are at least two areas in which Caesar is not completely greedy, uh, or ravenous or gluttonous. Oh, okay, well, he knows where he pulled it back somewhere. Paragraph 54. But his abstinence did not extend to pecuniary advantages, as every other paragraph before has shown, either in his military commands or civil offices, for we have the testimony of some writers that he took money from the proconsul, who was his predecessor in Spain, and from the Roman allies in that quarter, for the discharge of his debts, and plundered at the point of the sword some towns of the Lusitanians, notwithstanding they attempted no resistance, and opened their gates to him upon his arrival before them. In Gaul, he rifled the chapels and temples of the gods, which were filled with rich offerings, and demolished cities oftener for the sake of their spoil than for any ill they had done. By this means, gold became so plentiful with him that he exchanged it through Italy and the provinces of the empire for 3,000 sesterces the pound. In his first consulship, he purloined from the capital 3,000 pounds weight of gold, and substituted for it the same quantity of gilt brass. He bartered likewise to foreign nations and princes for gold, the titles of allies and kings, and squeezed out of Ptolemy alone near 6,000 talents in the name of himself and Pompey. He afterwards supported the expense of the civil wars and of his triumphs and public spectacles by the most flagrant rapine and sacrilege. Uh, Funny thing is, the way Suetonius lines this up, it lines it up in such a way thus far as Caesar's poor schmuck who just seems to fall into a bunch of scandals all the way from the time of his youth. But he works hard, he commits himself. Yeah, he sees Alexander's statue in Spain at the Temple of Hercules, but he wants to make a name for himself and be great, which doesn't sound too much like different from the average Roman male. Then he puts in a line, and that line is, oh yeah, he gets off by his boys. But let me backtrack, and then on the backtrack, it's Caesar's the lowest, most scurrilous, uh, most vindictive, greediest, and apparently nastiest person Rome has ever had. The scale is, yeah. Anyway, I'll do one more paragraph. This will be paragraph 55 for this video, and then we'll pick up with 56 in the next one. In eloquence and warlike achievements, he equaled at least, if he did not surpass, the greatest of men. After his prosecution of Dolabella, he was indisputably reckoned one of the most distinguished advocates. In recounting to Brutus the famous orators, declares, quote, that he does not see that Caesar was inferior to any one of them, and says, quote, that he had an elegant, splendid, noble, and magnificent vein of eloquence. And in a letter to Cornelius Nepos, he writes of him in the following terms, quote, what, of all the orators who, during the whole course of their lives, had done nothing else, which can you prefer to him? Which of them is more pointed or terse in his periods, or employs more polished and eloquent language? In his youth he seems to have chosen Strabo Caesar for his model, from whose oration in behalf of the Sardinians he has transcribed some passages literally into his divination. In his delivery he is said to have had a shrill voice, and his action was animated but not ungraceful. He was left behind he has left behind him some speeches, among which are ranked a few that are not genuine, such as that on behalf of Quintus Metellus. These Augustus supposes, with reason, to be rather the production of blundering shorthand writers, who were not able to keep pace with him in the delivery, than publications of his own. For I find in some copies that the title is not for Metellus, but what he wrote to Metellus, whereas the speech is delivered in the name of Caesar, vindicating Metellus and himself from the aspersions cast upon them by their common defamers. The speech addressed, quote, to his soldiers in Spain, Augustus considers likewise as spurious. We meet with two under this title, one made as is pretended in the first battle, and the other in the last, at which time Asinius Pollio says he had not leisure to address the soldiers, on account of the suddenness of the enemy's attack. Okay, so great in war, great speech maker, but the speeches that apparently got handed down, dubious at best. That's. I thought it was wild the last reading I did. Yeah, yeah. I mean, at this point, I'm just sort of like uh, I'm kind of waiting to get to the next person, which should be Augustus after the next civil war after Caesar's. So yeah, our guy, if half this was true, was wild, but that's cool because he could general really good and also speechify like nobody else. So that's cool. There's some pros and cons there. And he's not a drunk, and stale oil is cool with him. So yeah, I still find Caesar exceptionally fascinating. So thank you, Suetonius, posthumously. Does this is a great read, as scandalous as the doggone thing is. Next time I'll pick up with paragraph 56. See where this goes. We'll see how much longer Suetonius can drag this out before Caesar finally completely he gets to the actual murder and we move on to someone else because we've got 11 other Caesars to go, right? On the 12 Caesars. But thank you very much for listening to this. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Have a great time. Stay safe out there and keep sucking up that history and lore and a new language if you care. Stay safe.